Well, hello everybody. I'm coming on today to share some insight that I've had from doing my own soul searching around some questions that came to me around how do you know the difference between what your gut intuition is and what is a feeling around fear. And you may think that they are the same, but they're actually quite different. We crave so deeply to be seen out in the world by our partners, by our purpose, by our children, by our friends, by the communities that we're in. And yet, many times when we're met with that deep seeing, when someone really witnesses us, at times we're unable to receive it. And what is important is to understand that there's probably a wound there, a trauma, so to speak. And at some point, we potentially were betrayed after we did reveal. And it could have been as a child, wanting to put on a show for your parents time and time again, right? And then they shushed you or told you that they didn't have time for you. And so there can be this feeling of betrayal that can overcome us. And we learn that it's not safe to be vulnerable, it's dangerous to be seen. And we slowly but surely build an armor around our hearts. But yet, we still experience the duality in the body of longing for love. And we truly long to be known for who we are. And so, with that said, you might be asking, so what does it have to do with intuition or fear? Well, it's this. When women start doing this work with me that are on their soul journey, a lot of them are learning how to be more embodied, to really be able to feel so they can heal. And that, again, can be confusing, especially when we're so used to hearing, well, I feel like you don't like me, or I feel as if it would be better for us to do this, which really is not the proper way to use the word feeling, right? And so what I want to clarify here is my take after doing my own research and like I said, my own inquiry with myself, but also out there in the world seeking out, other people that may, feel as I do or maybe not. And to understand, like, what is the difference between fear and intuition? And is it true that your gut feeling is fear and intuition at the same time? Well, that's a great question. And even though I know how I distinguish between fear and intuition, I wanted to make sure that I shared some tips here that might be able to help you in the future. But first off, like, what is intuition? And basically, the way I view intuition is that it is when there's an ability to understand something instinctively without the need for conscious reasoning. And this is partly true in that space, is what I believe, based on Webster's definition of what intuition is. But I also think that intuition is much more than just instinctive. There's more to it than this instinctive urge to run from danger or to have food and water. Those basic survival needs that we have that we don't even have to think about, right? And even though I agree that intuition doesn't need conscious reasoning, I believe it isn't without cognitive elements. And there's more consideration than reasoning in itself. Because you see, intuition is going to use wisdom from your past knowledge and experiences to assess a situation, to really, what I like to say, Google map this and Google map the present based on clues and details that might not be obvious to the rational mind, but they're there. And if you wanted to put it in a formula, intuition is a subconscious assessment of the past, your experiences, and your knowledge, for example. Also, your personal needs and preferences. How do you want to feel? What's a more compelling future that you're moving towards? And then also your present, like right here, right now. feelings that arise, your choice of words, surroundings, and signs that other people are giving. And all these can lead to a calculation of the best way to handle a situation. And so if you see intuition as a knowing that is based on more than the different elements of your rational mind, you can deal with these things at any given moment. And so you might be asking, like, well, how do you know? How do you know the difference, Sandy, between our intuition and perhaps maybe our unexpressed trauma? Because what we might consider to be intuition might be a trauma or fear response from something from the past. So how would you know the difference? And this is really when embodiment is going to be key. Like, do you know your no? Do you know your yes? Do you listen to what your body actually is saying versus saying it's a feeling or intuition, but it's actually your mind keeping you in protective mode? Because the intuition development is taught to actually be this formula that I'm talking about. And there's only one way to increase or refine our intuition, and that's to meet and release subconscious fear. Otherwise, we're trapped in this prison. We're making reactionary choices that feel like intuition, but are actually a body-mind addiction responses. Like, we're just literally used to doing it because it's just what we know. I'm 50 years old and I still find that, I'm, swimming upstream in some areas when it comes to being in a relationship with my husband now for 3 years, and a very healthy, passionate, loving relationship. But there are times when old feelings from the past, old situation, like around the holidays right now, are coming up, and I can feel the old way of being, trying to rear its head. And so that's why it's very important to know your yeses, know your nos, understand, your body and what it is sharing, because your body keeps score. Like Peter Levine, talks about this in his books, The Body Keeps Score. So understand these things here. Intuition is calm, not heightened. It isn't reactionary. It isn't defensive. It's very creative, looking to solve and create. And so the commitment to refine our intuition is a commitment to become clear of our subconscious fear programming. And this is the work. This is the work that we do with my clients in my Sacred She programs. John uses it with his Men Ignited. Is to us to actually shine the light on the old way of being. And then that allows us to really know this distinction between intuition and therefore fear. And so if you don't do this, and otherwise you might leave a wonderful relationship, whether it be personal or your work relationship, in which you are actually deeply accepted because maybe your intuition is telling you it's no good for you. You see, it's a slippery slope. And so actually, you may say it was your intuition, but it wasn't. Because it's probably your fear of rejection talking, creating the self-fulfilling conditions to confirm that you are never accepted. There's an exercise, that I've learned from my teachers, John and Kendra, and I like to pay it forward, where we talk about how our old way of showing up and receiving and desiring love shows up in our everyday life, including our professional life. And so it goes. Intuition is our birthright, and we all possess it. But without refinement, without an understanding, without an awareness, we'll harm ourselves and others in the bane of our intuition when actually it's fear. So again, is it fear or intuition? And they're easily confused, and that has to do with the fact that they're both experienced as a gut feeling. And I really mean that literally, a feeling in your gut. And many of us have fallen, out of touch with what our gut feelings are, to put it mildly. And, if you've been following me for a while, you know that I believe we have to feel to heal. I cannot stress it enough. But here we are, here in the 3D world, where we're so occupied with our thoughts and intelligent reasoning, because our monkey mind is telling us that that's what we need to do to keep us safe, that it can be hard to understand what our gut means when it has a feeling. So there's a few embodied ways that I like to share that will distinguish gut feelings and fear from gut feelings that are actually intuition. And here's a few. The two most important things that separate fear and intuition are intuition will be only about the present. There's no worrying about past lack or future anxiety. It's in the here and now. Intuition will remain neutral, unemotional, not stoic, but there's not a charge around this. The fear is where there would be a highly emotional charge. Reliable intuition is going to feel just right, compassionate, have an affirming feel to it. Where fear is often, like I said, anxious, dark, or heavy, cruel, demeaning, or delusional potentially in its content to yourself or others. And it will definitely reflect unhealed wounds, unhealed triggers. So when you're accessing this, are you able to feel some expansion? Or does there feel like there's restriction? Expansiveness will really come from your intuition, where the restriction or shrinking feeling, shrinking if you don't get the thing, shrinking about even making the decision in the first place, what that does. I mean, that's the fear. And so I'll share a few practices that I like to put in place, to begin to learn how to distinguish fear from intuition. And the first is just to simply write a list of everything you're afraid of. Everything that you're afraid of. And therefore, it'll be easier to recognize when a gut feeling is referring to one of your fears. It's really as simple as that. The other thing is to actually, learn how to close your eyes and, think about something that you want that is an easy thing. Like I like hamburgers, for example. You close your eyes and feel it in your body. Where's your yes to that? Where's your no to that? Like literally start with all the little simple things. I'm brushing my teeth, closing your eyes. Yes, I'm brushing my teeth. Or in this case, I'm not brushing my teeth. To fine tune the body into the simpleness of what's the yes and what's the no. Something else is to imagine something that you're fond of, a very clear image. It could be, your baby. It could be a pet. It could be your partner. And get a very clear image in your head. And notice that feeling in your belly that goes with this picture. It will probably be very expansive. Then I want you to imagine a destructive image, like failing at your marriage, failing to get this dream job, gaining lots of weight, for example, or losing lots of weight. I mean, whatever it is going to make you upset. And then notice that feeling, very similar to the yes or no practice. It will probably be restrictive. It'll be shrinking. And then imagine a fearful feeling based on an intuitive guidance. Maybe you went to see a coach. Maybe you're in My Sacred She program. Maybe you went to see a therapist, to discuss this destructive feeling that keeps coming up over and over and over again, even though you've always been afraid to go to therapy. When you close your eyes and experience both the fear and the underlying good feeling that indicates that you're going in the right direction, feel the duality in those. And you'll probably be experiencing the wisdom with your past experiences and what you want to create in the future will equal this beautiful place of intuition. And so as you practice feeling the difference between fear and intuition, it's extremely powerful to know how to separate the two. Separate the gut feeling that you can and should trust immediately to the intuition that you're going to be trusting from the one you should look at with compassion, which is your fear. Getting to know the difference between fear and intuition takes practice, and it's absolutely worth playing here. Happy to discuss this more with you, in private. So feel free to reach out to me and we can talk about this. Again, it is in that finite space of understanding. Am I responding to something from my past and trauma where there's a lack if I don't do or get the thing? Because these fearful feelings can be interfering, but they're not all without use. Because sometimes that fear is going to signal that moment just before you start something new. Perhaps just before you get the thing. Before you walk down the aisle to your forever love after 3 failed relationships. Maybe it is one where you're about to bring that baby home that you've been longing for years. And it's like, oh, have I made the right decision? In that case, a gut feeling based in fear can be a signal for you to push on. And that's why I'm saying allow yourself to lean into some of these practices, these exercises that I'm suggesting, because the reward is around letting ourselves being seen, which is a vulnerable and ecstatic journey. The unfurling is infinite. I mean, allowing love to permeate all of us. And even when we're making a tough choice, there's still love there because you're loving yourself, you're loving others, you're loving the world, and you're making these decisions to make ultimately life better, right? So your body's going to know. Your body already knows. And maybe it just hasn't been using the muscle of intuition. Maybe it's been activated out of fear. There's something beautiful in learning how to sit with both, understanding and slowing down, allowing yourself permission to stop, pump the brakes, breathe. Again, I hope you found this helpful as you're leaning more into, what the difference is between this intuition versus fear. And learning how to use, the term feeling properly, like you're actually talking about the emotions versus leading the witness, so to say. So, thank you for listening, and I hope you found this helpful. Please feel free to leave a comment, and I'm looking forward to serving you in the future. Ciao.